Good evening. Today I will talk about the poem of Emily Dickinson, I Felt a Funeral in My Brain. So I will be talking about its historical context, Emily Dickinson, and then a summary of the poem, the themes, the style, and the compare and contrast, and of course my critical overview. So I Felt a Funeral in My Brain was first published in 1896. As Emily Dickinson lived a life with great privacy, some of her and only published some of her poems in her life. The exact year of its composition is not really known, but like many people that have studied her, agree that it could have been written in year 1861. So, like several of her poems, this one explores the functioning of the human mind under extreme feelings such as stress, maybe, and tries to replicate and explain the stages of a mental breakdown through a general metaphor and a comparison with a funeral. So basically, she uses the procedures of a funeral to show the stages of the speaker's mental breakdown until she faces destruction that is simply inexplicable and words are not enough. So, the author. Emily Dickinson left very little information about herself other than maybe the great poetry found only after her death. So her whole name was Emily Elizabeth Dickinson. She was born on December 10th, 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts, and she died May 15, 1886 in the same place. She was the second daughter of Edward and Emily Dickinson, and her grandfather was the first one that built the city's first brick house and the co-founder of Amherst College, while her father served as treasurer of the university for 37 years and also was a stern and puritanical man who sought to defend his children and the church from the growing threat of the radical ideas of New England transcendentalism. In one of her letters, she even writes that, I quote, "His heart was pure and terrible, and I believe that there is no other like it." So, despite all of these thoughts, Emily and her sister attended to Amherst Academy, they had an excellent education. Emily attended to Amherst Academy and then to Mount Holyoke Women's Seminary. But just for a year, because then she retired, and however, she started to have a big disbelief about the God that her father believed so much. And that could be because she started reading a copy of Emerson's poems in 1850. So basically, this kind of just made her think other things. And when she started writing, she didn't have great success. Yeah, mostly that. Although she was never an extrovert, when her father died, she stayed in the land and in the grounds of her father and never left. She stayed in contact with many people by letters, and when she died, her sister found at least 2,000 poems written in small pieces of paper and soon on small pamphlets. They were all published in various editions, and the last one was in 1950 55. So now about the poem that I will talk about. Uh, let's start with the lines 1 to 4. So in this poem, Dickinson tries to translate the experience of a mental breakdown into poetic language, which is not easy. So the first stanza presents the metaphor of a funeral that is used throughout the poem to convey the irrational and uncomfortable feeling of a mental breakdown. So she refers to the brain in both ways, the concrete physical organ and the idea of a speaker's mind. Such meanings are used throughout the poem to convey the physical and mental effects of the collapse. Losing reason is like a funeral, the final burial and the burial of rational thought. So mourners can be read as symbols of the events or ideas that caused the speaker to collapse. So, like she said, stepping, and such as events or ideas are unstoppable and continue until the speaker begins to realize what is happening. So the sense or knowledge of what is happening begins to break and to culminate in some kind of understanding of its inescapable devastation. So talking more about 5 to 8, as the opening lines shape the funeral as a general metaphor for the speaker's collapse, the following stanzas refer to specific parts of the funeral procedure to further convey the speaker's experience. So in these ones, it's just like dramatizing the instability of the speakers. And all of this just through the use of the sound. All mourners are seated, representing a quiet moment, that it's perhaps just a break, and then the break is really short, and it begins a new assault on both the physical senses and their mind. And then comes the sound of a drum, which just attacks on her lucidity, and it's an attack of fears that she feels her mind just goes to sleep. And numbness is a physical sensation that is presented as another example of the speaker's struggle to convey her experience in understandable physical terms. Then 9 to 11, the speaker is now in what appears to be a state of shock, stunned and still look like a corpse in preparation for burial. So basically what happens here is that the sensors are still working, although she's just like in a ghost form, like in a soul form. She listens how the bearers are just lifting the coffin, and in this coffin is just like the one she used to be, the sane, her previously sane self. But they are just like destroying everything, her soul, and she also makes it like an unpleasant sound because of the result of the men with heavy lead boots jumping on her soul. And what is trampled is the soul of the speaker. Then 12 to 11 is basically how she feels alone, like loneliness. She's shattered. This place where she is, she's just caught in a place alone. She can be physically, this place can be physical inside the coffin or figurative mental place, the description of which is too difficult to explain. Words are not enough to explain how she feels, but she feels just like in a coffin, just like there's not enough oxygen. And the noise that has grown throughout the poems is still present, so much that the silence seems part of a strange race that it can no longer recognize. The ambiguity of the speaker's physical and mental location in these lines suggests that the difficulty of using a specific language just to express how she feels. And of course, the last part, which is really important too, is how then there is all this again, all this noise. I mean, she just feels like the whole world is just bells ringing, and it just says concludes both the metaphorical funeral rites and the description of the speaker's breakdown also. So in the last one, she just felt the bells ringing and all the noise, and right now she's just falling. Right when, like in the funeral, they put the coffin down, well, she's just falling like that in the coffin, but like really fast without stopping. So the main theme in this poem can be the mind, and from these two come madness and sanity, and doubt and uncertainty. Madness and sanity, why? Well, actually, not like madness, like she's crazy, but just say that she's not well. She actually is having like a funeral ritual to represent how she feels. That these words, she's saying how a mental breakdown feels like, and suggests that the horror and purpose is just perfect to describe it. In the end, she actually just is saying how her sanity dies. I mean, the funeral is just like a funeral for her sanity, and how everything is just the worst thing that could happen. But like I also said, this poem can be interpreted by another, like it can be other ways interpreted, like doubt and uncertainty. This was just like faith. We know her father was really religious, but she isn't, so it's basically just burying her own faith in, yeah, and just all the religious reference that she gives, like the sky and, well, a ceremony. It's just burying her faith and, well, leaving everything uncertain. So the style is quite complicated because she usually used. I mean, it's written in alternative lines of iambic tetrameter, and she usually, I mean, 4 iambles per line, and iambic meter 3 iambles per line, and she used to use this style very often, but like here is its specific utility lies in the way in which it reinforces in the reader's ear the constant progression of the forces causing the speaker's mental or spiritual collapse. In a poem like this, where the sounds heard by the speaker are used as metaphors for her mental state, in meter takes on additional importance. So that's basically what I can say about the style. And compare and contrast, I will talk about this in this next video, which will be really quick, Carl.